Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to The Last of Us after show here. I'm joined by my good friend Dominic St. Clair. You want to say hi, Dom?
What's going on, everybody?
Yeah. And Dom has his own YouTube channel. What's it called again, Dom?
Dominic St. Clair Studios.
What's on that channel, bro?
Mostly film related content. I do reviews on films that come out. I did a Megan one, a Violent Night one. Um, I also post skits on there. I already posted like two of them. I have another two that are coming out right now. I'm in the editing process. And yeah, that's pretty much what's going on right now for the channel. So yeah.
That's what's up, man. Yeah. Today we are going to be talking about the HBO Last of Us adaptation, which started tonight. I'm sure a lot of you are just coming off the show. So first of all, welcome to the channel. I hope you guys enjoy the chat that we have, and if you do, make sure you hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. So here's what we're gonna do today. Basically, we're gonna go through the show as if we were not fans, at least the best we can, right? We're gonna go through the show as if we've never seen it before, and then we're gonna go ahead and give a good spoiler warning or whatever to whoever is watching and hasn't seen the show, so that we can talk about sort of the more adaptational stuff after that. Sound good to you, Dom?
Sounds good. It's going to be hard, but I'll do my best.
Yeah. Like I said, the best we can. I do. Before we do that, let's go ahead and just very quickly, because we have on our old podcast gone more into detail about how we feel about the games, and I don't want to I don't want to rehash that whole conversation again. But real quickly, let's just go ahead and state how we feel about the two games and the franchise as a whole. Dom, I'll go ahead and let you start.
Yeah, so the games I enjoy them. The two games. I didn't think they were both bad in their own right. Obviously, the first one is considered to be up there and in standard, high praise type of deal when it comes to the two games. Part two is the least favorite from what I've understand. I enjoyed part two. I didn't think it was a bad game. Story wise, it was a little off balance, but I still think it was a pretty unique story, something a little different from the first game. And but with the first game that started it all, very, very cool story. Everyone knows it for the story, but
Mhm.
also just the gameplay aspect of it, the survival gameplay when it comes to, trying to gather supplies for your weapons, for your health, and all that. And, trying to survive off the enemies of the zombies, or what do you call them? Like, what do they call them? Not
Uh,
fungus. They are fungus, but like they're called clickers and yeah, stuff like that. So like you're facing against like zombie like fungus creatures as well, which is part of the enemy aspect of the game. So just a little quick rundown. So The Last of Us 1 and 2 are set in a post-apocalyptic world where a fungus has took over the world, and that has been turning people into zombie-like creatures that are fungus-like. And we follow Joel and Ellie, two survivors that are trying to survive this whole apocalypse and go on this journey together to build, their character and the relationship.
yeah.
And
Let's
and
not.
as they,
Be careful here with spoilers. I do want to go
yeah,
more into that.
yeah,
So
but
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, that's pretty much part 1 and 2. Two I won't talk about since it's a little different, but
Yeah.
that's the premise of part 1, and this is what it looks like the HBO is trying to do for the first season. So I love the games, and that's my thought and takes on them.
Yeah, I consider the first game to be probably the top three, if not the greatest story in video games. Period. Like maybe the Red Dead Redemption games give it a run for its money, but I really do think yeah. But I think as far as like a focused narrative, like The Last of Us Part One is a masterpiece. It's everything everyone says it is and more. You know, The Last of Us Part Two, like if the first game is this really tightly written like story, where like nothing is out of place and everything feeds into each other and creates this great big beautiful tapestry. That's the first game. And that's the kind of work that is written by a writer who has discipline, who has a vision, a clear vision, and who kind of knows how to very efficiently and quickly get their ideas out with a lot of clarity and stuff like that. And that's the first game. The second game is if you took that same writer and then like took the first short story he wrote when he was in sixth grade and then made a video game about that. The second game to me is a really like just immature. Um, I just consider it like a very obvious sort of pandering game, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of this story. The gameplay is fantastic. I do admire it for a lot of its sort of choices, creative choices. But one of the things that I'm really excited about with this adaptation is how they do deal with the second part of the story, because that to me, um, that's to me, that's the only part of the series that I don't like is the entire second game. But we'll get there when we get there, because that's not really, at least we're not there. We're not there in the story yet. That's all I'll say. But yeah, Dom, let's go ahead and just let's go ahead and talk about our general impressions of the show again, without really trying to compare it to the game. What did you think of the show?
I thought it's separate from the game. If you're a first time viewer watching it, I say it's a good viewing experience first time because you know the game like it. I'm trying to compare, but like I'll say this without comparing, but it probably will. So the the show does follow the same path as the first game, as
Yeah.
far as we know. But they make slight differences and changes so then they can be more creative with it and show the fans that they're not like repeating the same types of scenes slash elements that were in the first game. Um, and I think they did a really good job at that. They
Mhm.
still kept the same flow and the same path, but they diverged it a little bit and changed things up in the scenes, which I think was pretty unique.
Yeah.
And for a first time viewer, it's okay because you don't really need to play the game in order to like go and watch this HBO Max series because oh you need to know all this stuff. You don't need to. Like the game, the show, the first episode literally explains it to you, or just trickles the story down to you, and you don't even have to know anything about the story of the Last of Us game in order to understand what's
Right.
going on in this story of the adaptation. So I think for a first time viewer, I think it's going to be a good watch for them, especially the certain changes in the scenes that they put in that I think added a little more to the elements of the original game.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think they'll like it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I think the first episode, divorced from any context with the first game, I think it's a very well structured, very well written show, very cinematic. I think is what I dug the most about it, is that it really did feel like a movie. It felt like a structured
Yeah.
like its own like standalone film. I really enjoyed the sort of way that the game sort of I'm sorry, the show unfolds its story by like very quickly and cleanly telling us these three little stories. For we open up with 1968 with a talk show, and you could be saying a lot of people say that kind of shit is cheesy and cliche. I get it, but it's effective. There's a reason why people use it so much. It's effective.
Yeah.
And that, and then we go into the sequence in 2003, and then we go to the main part of the story. I think what, like 20 years later, I believe is what they what
2023. Yeah, 20 years later.
23 years later. Yeah. I really enjoyed the sort of the little stories that unfold in all of them. I thought the breakout, to me, I'm not a big fan of Zack Snyder movies, but I think the best movie he ever did was his remake of Dawn of the Dead. And the opening like 15 minutes of that movie for the longest time was my favorite like day one zombie outbreak sequence ever. But I think this show definitely in that sequence where it's about the outbreak day. I think that show has definitely taken my over my estimation, as far as like the best outbreak zombie sequence in anything ever. Like it was
Yeah.
so action packed, so imaginative, and yes, like you know, don't want to talk about it too much right here, but clearly very much borrowing from the game a lot. But the direction, the editing is really damn good. The sort of greater part after that, like it just kind of settles into a kind of straightforward retelling of the game. But overall, I thought the first half is probably where the most impactful stuff is, and then the second half is real character based, real just character development and stuff like that. And given who's in charge of this show, Neil Druckmann and Greg Mazin, we're already starting to see some really great like characterization and direction throughout the entire thing. So that's very briefly my thoughts on the show without going into the game. Is there anything you want to touch on to expand on that, Dom?
Yeah, I don't think it's cheesy that they implemented that 68 scene. I think it's unique. It's a good way to show that they could have what you call it, prevented this virus from outbreaking and being able to be spreading around like a flu, but it's deadlier. People are killing each other. Um, I think it's cool that they did that because it shows that they just don't really give a fuck. Either they don't care or it's a part of an experiment, and that's the way it's going to be playing out. But I don't think they explain that it's either one of those. But either one, hey, it still got out, so it shows like they don't really care or it's part of an experiment. I didn't think that was cheesy. I thought it was a good uh addition to the story. I think to
Right.
see like, oh, what, so on the other side, like the military, like the government, like how do they deal with this outbreak? How do they get involved in this outbreak and this virus? And they showed a little bit of that in 68, and I thought that was cool. The second half, the second story, I thought it was cool because, like I said, they do retell it. They do the same type of scenes, but they change it up a bit. We
Yeah.
never got it. We never got the scene where Tommy, Joel, and forgot his daughter.
Sarah.
His name Sarah. Oh, okay, Sarah. So Tommy, Joel, and Sarah in one scene together. I think during the day in the second story. We didn't get that in the game. Like that's something we never got, and I'm glad like you do stuff like that. But then we get to the part where the outbreak is gonna start, but before it starts, we see the cute like scene between Joel and Sarah, like, hey, your watch is broken, or here's a watch and all that.
Yeah,
But
let's break down that part too, because yeah, like the
yeah,
the opening with the 68 sequence is just very quick exposition to let the story flow and stuff like that. It's neither really here or there, but it was effective. The second part, yeah, let's go ahead and break that down a little bit, right? Because it starts off, yeah, we get to meet the character of Sarah, and who is the daughter of Joel, who's a contractor, and it's just like another day in the life. It's his birthday, and I really enjoyed when it came to Sarah, like sort of like following her throughout the day, as she is buying this thing for her father. What did you think of Sarah, the way she's portrayed, at least in the first, like in the beginning of the second sort of story here?
yeah. I think the actress did a pretty good job portraying the original character. The actress that voiced her, I think she did a pretty decent job at it.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously, they're not gonna fully take control, especially with the accent. Like she doesn't have the accent that's the original Sarah had, but that's okay. I think she did good. Portraying an innocent person that is just fun, outgoing, and then of course when she hits the fan, she's really scared, and she does a good job at that. And I think she did a really good job portraying a character that is a sweet, loving person that ends up getting terrorized and just becoming in that state of mind. And yeah, I think she did a pretty good job. Obviously, I know people are going to complain like, why is she darker or like or black
Yeah.
or whatever. And that's what they're going. And same thing with
That's for my
freaking
other live stream, bro. That's for my other live stream. We'll
yeah,
let those fuckers cry.
Tommy Hispanic. It's like okay, it's whatever. It's
Yeah.
fictional characters. I don't understand, but as long as they do the part well, that's what all that matters. But I think they did. She did a good job. Pretty good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, I really enjoyed when it came to spending a time with Sarah throughout the day and stuff like that. Just how like slowly in the background when she's just trying to do this one single simple thing for her father, just slowly you start to see shit just build in tension. Like you see first of all like you see her in class, and then you see a bunch of like police cars pass by, and then you see the firefighter truck, then you see the SWAT truck pass by, and I just really liked like the slow escalation. Like, oh, it's a police situation. Oh, it's an emergency situation. Oh, it's a SWAT situation.
Yeah,
And, and I really liked how you're just following this character kind of going through the city. And in the background, you're just seeing slowly everything go crazy. And then you have that scene where she goes to get her dad's watch fixed. That's gonna be her gift for his birthday. And the guy is all happy, but then the wife is like, no, we got to get the fuck out of here. Shit started to hit the fan. And I really want to talk to you about this because I know you're a big horror fan, right? And this to me was from that point on, it does kind of become a horror movie because the tension is ratcheted up, and then she goes to the house of one of her neighbors, right? I forgot what the neighbors I think the out something like that.
yeah. It's like starts with an A.
Yeah, it starts with an A or something. But what I loved about it was that like it starts off with her just spending time with the sweet lady, and she has the older woman there who is vegetative and shit like that. And I love how like she's turned around, and in the background you see the lady, something is like affecting her or infecting her or something, but she's in the background. She doesn't even notice it, and when she turns around, she's back to normal. And I really the Adlers. There you go. Thank you, Lindsay. and
Thank you.
yeah, and I really love that sequence because I thought it set up the horror really well. What did you think, Dom, about like the sort of horror filmmaking during this part of the episode?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's not just like horror. It's also like bringing in reality when it comes to like sicknesses, like diseases. Like you see somebody start to act weird, like um, maybe for example seizures or something. Like they're normal for 1 second, then they're fucking spazzing out, freaking out, and then like they're back to normal, or something like that. Certain diseases people have, like it goes from an on switch and an off switch.
Yeah,
And that's something that I like about what they did here is that they're not just implementing the scare factor and the horror factor there, they're implementing some reality to it. And I think that's it's really cool about that. It's like sometimes reality is scary too when it comes to that too. Like it's just this is stuff that like that happens as well. But yeah, I definitely like the way they build that up and the way it's shot. It's very horror like, better than The Walking Dead, the way they did.
yeah. No, this did remind me of some Walking Dead and a couple of sequences. But yeah, so we follow Sarah back inside the house where she falls asleep, or no, Joel puts her back to sleep, and then she wakes up. And we'll talk about that dialogue sequence in a minute because I don't think that's going to be interesting to anybody unless you played the games. But yeah, then we have Sarah waking up, and then we have the scene at the Adlers once again where she walks back in and the granny has completely gone full zombie and stuff like that. And yeah, dude, that reminded me of Resident Evil, like the first Resident Evil, more than anything. Do you remember that? Like,
Yeah, when they turn their face at the camera and they're just like revealing themselves. Yeah, I love
yeah.
that.
So then we go to that sequence where it's essentially Sarah sees the old lady become a zombie. She runs out, and suddenly her father is there to save the day. And we get the big action set piece of the entire episode. By the way, Dom, I don't know if you know this or not, but originally the show was going to have 10 episodes, but now it has 9. And they combined what we got today. That was supposed to be 2 different episodes that they cut together. Can you feel it? Like, do you feel that when you were watching it?
Yeah, like I felt like the 68 and the second story with Joel and uh, Sh-
Sarah.
Sarah and his brother Tommy. I felt like those two uh, parts were combined as an episode,
Yeah.
and then the second episode is 20 years later, 23 years later, like 2023. That's how that second episode starts, and then go on from there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
No, no, I totally agree. I definitely vibe with that because this sequence it feels like the big climactic sequence of an episode, right? And that's where we follow Joel, Sarah, and Tommy inside the truck, right? Which is straight out of the game, right? Like straight out of the game.
And I like how they do it too. The camera angles, like in the game, you can control the camera to look around and stuff, and it's a little bit of a first person.
Hmm.
And they do the same thing here. They actually did the same thing here, and I thought that was pretty a good touch on it. Like I can tell these guys are fans of the
Right.
game because they do a lot of things that are is relevant to the game. But they obviously do things different as well, which they should because the
Yeah.
fans of the game are gonna watch it and we're like, oh, it's the same thing. But anyway, sorry, I mean
No, no,
cut
you
you
know,
off.
no, it's all good, man. It's all good. So yeah, so then we get the car chase, and then we get the sequence inside the city, which to me, man, like honestly, it really did remind me of Matt Reeves. Like Matt Reeves, the guy who directed the two Planet of the Apes movies, the second and third Planet of the Apes movies, the Batman last year. He has a thing for like objective or subjective camera placement and stuff like that, and just letting an entire action scene play out with just the camera locked off and the character like in front of it to anchor all the movement. And I really thought this sequence in the downtown, where you're stuck inside the car with the characters and you're seeing as the problem keeps getting worse and worse. I thought that was really effective action horror filmmaking. Did it strike you at all?
Yeah, it reminds me of that movie. Either it was Dawn of the Dead or it was that other movie, zombie movie, forgot the name. But
8 days later.
reminds me yeah, it's probably 28 days later. It's like where like you see everything happening and it just gets worse and worse. Like you're saying, like you see the cops like before the night starts, like you see it already happening. It's already progressing and it's getting worse and worse. And we get to the point where it's so bad that freaking people, there's a bunch of people in the streets. That you can't even drive through them. If you want to run them over, either you can or you will. It doesn't matter. It just depends how long, how much you want to survive. But you have airplanes. Woo!
Yeah, I wanted to say
Three of them. I
I
was
wanted
like,
to
what?
yeah, I wanted to save that for like the big, but yeah, you're absolutely right because yeah, you're seeing the airplanes a little bit like right before it, and then you see three airplanes flying right over this tiny little town, and one of them just, dude, like that was such a fucking brilliant action visual to like end out that sequence on, man. Like I love that action sequence, dude. That to me, just like the action junkie inside of me, like that was the highlight of the episode.
Yeah, and I'm starting to remember. I don't think it's a zombie. It's called Cloverfield.
Yeah,
Like Cloverfield, like in the beginning, like it's all settled, but then you start seeing things that are happening, and it gets worse and worse, and then all of a sudden explosion, and then like things are destroyed. Obviously, it's a monster, so the monster's doing it. But like, we don't know what's happening at the moment. It's just starting to build up, and that's what's happening here in the Last of Us show. Is that it's building up and it's getting worse and worse as time progresses, and that's the thing, man. Like, it's scary to think about these things because if you don't contain it in a like, say if it starts in a house with
yeah,
somebody, right? If you can't contain it there, it's gonna get out and it's gonna spread around through the neighborhood and then out from the neighborhood into the city and then from the city into another neighborhood. It starts to spread, and that's what's crazy about it. And that's what's scary about it too, is that it can happen and we won't even know it. We're just like, cops pass by, maybe it's just like crime, whatever. It's just that type of stuff where you just don't know, and
Yeah.
until it's too late.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate how like later on in the episode, you do just see that poster that says if you get bit in the neck, you got like 5 to 50, you got like 5 to 10 minutes most. If you get bit in the torso, you got like 2 to 4 hours. If you get bit in the legs, you got like 2 days. Like I like how that was one of the differentiating things, right? That well, let's go ahead and we're not quite done with the first half yet, but one of the things that show us the difference in you know 2003 and in 2026, and then in 2026 we understand the virus completely, and we have it more or less like under control. I maybe not the best word, but yeah. So that's something that we'll talk about in a minute. But I really want to talk about what comes after this, right? Because again, as people who played the video games, we knew where this was heading all along, and that really like we'll touch upon that later, but we knew where this was heading. And there's one thing that I really want to say right now, because I think this is worth saying for people who are just, experiencing this story for the first time. I've played The Last of Us maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, and each time when Sarah, Joel's daughter, when she gets shot, it's always hit me hard, dude. It's always been an emotional moment. But seeing it like in this episode, the way that it was done, it got to be hard. It got to be like I was watching it happen for the first time, man. Like how that hit you?
Oh, dude, it was an emotional moment, because you know, I'm that guy who was like, oh, this again,
Yeah,
but it was done really well, and it was done really well to the point like it was actually an actual like how do I'm trying to explain it, but like it's like you're playing the game, like
yeah,
you're playing the game again, and like the scene happens. It's like the same exact thing that happens. She gets shot. She starts whimpering. She starts like she's in pain, and then he does the same exact thing. Pushes pressure on it. It's like, "Ah!" and then tries to pick her up, and then she does the same like whelping and it's just like, oh my god, it's oh, that's so sad. And then of course when she dies, like you know
yeah,
she's you see her instantly die, and then like he hugs her, and yeah, it's an emotional scene, man. It's probably one of the top emotional scenes and death scenes in movie or game history at this point. So you just gotta give it to that, give them that.
yeah. No, and I know I'm sort of breaking my own rules here, but I think this is one of the few. I think this is like one of those times where I think it's okay to bring up the game a little bit, even though we're not really talking about the adaptational aspects of it yet. One of the things that is different, right? Because like in the original one, the way that Troy Baker, the way that he plays that scene is very like like in his head, like he wants to like pretend that he can still save her, right? Like in his head, like he wants to pretend that like there is still hope. What I really thought was a great like interpolation of that in the adaptation, like what goes to show you guys, like I know I'm like talking to maybe the wrong audience here, because I'm not talking to all the assholes I talk to on these people hate cinema, like those types of fans and shit. But this is why it's okay to change shit in an adaptation, guys. Like it's cool to do that, because one of the things that I really enjoyed about how the show portrayed it was that when Pedro Pascal's Joel, when the show's Joel sees that his daughter has been shot and is about to die, he goes, I know, I know, I know, I know. Like he knows it, and he's trying to say that in a way that is like reassuring to his daughter. But I mean, and yeah, you see him do the best he can to save his life, or to save her life, but he keeps saying, I know, like, and it's like the way that he repeats it, the way that that's like the only thing that he has to say, and still see him like fight with that, like it really brought out this internal struggle, like in a very, just very readable way, and that it just like that little different shade of it, just like a very subtle difference, really made me feel like I was again watching that scene for the first time. Yeah, man, no, that really got to me all over again.
Yeah, I remember Link you saying I know. I know, and I think it adds a lot to it too because it's like he he knows and he thinks like no I know it's gonna be okay though that type of deal, and I think like with that implementing into that as well like it just shows like he's really breaking down
Yeah,
at that moment he's breaking down and he's trying to say like yeah I realize what's happening but I don't want to see the outcome of it.
yeah,
I want to change the outcome, but it's already too late, and the outcome that he wanted is not what he got. So, yeah, it's definitely shows Joel's character and how he understands what's happening around him, but he just wants to do something that changes the outcome afterwards.
yeah,
And that I think that's what the Joel we got in this episode in this show.
yeah. No, yeah, and like, and what I really, well, okay, maybe that's something we should talk about later in the episode when we get to the adaptational part. But clearly to me, this was when the first episode originally was going to end with this moment. Very, very impactful. So my question to you, hypothetically speaking, Dom, let's pretend the original plan for this show went through, and we were going to get 10 episodes, and this would have been what we just saw would have been the first episode. Imagine a world where this was all we got for a week. What would you have thought if that had been the case?
Hmm, interesting. I I think it will still be good and strong.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I really do because it's not just the way it ended; it's just the way the episode plays out. It plays out really well, and towards the end, I think it does good on its own. So I think it will still do good, and a good way to end the episode. But of course, we all know they continue it, and that's fine. But I think like yeah, they should if they would have ended it on that part. I think it will still do fine. I think we'll still talk about it as good as we just did. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been fine as well. But I think it would have really felt incomplete. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, emotionally impactful moment. But I think given that like it is like a three act, if that would have been the case, it really would have felt like there was no third act, and yeah, like I really thought it was a smart move. Although again, like you said, man, like in and of itself, this would have been a pretty solid first episode, for sure. But again, the show doesn't do that. The show kind of goes on. We were only halfway through, and we see Ellie, or we see Joel, 23 years later, living in the well. Before we do that, we see something else first. We see a lost little boy, and this kid has 1,000 yard stare, like he just came back from Vietnam, man. Like this kid's definitely gone through some shit, and we're introduced to the world of no, we're not just introduced to the world of 2026 post zombie outbreak America, but we're also reintroduced to Joel, and we're introduced to Tess in a very, very fucked up way, very dark way. So I'll go ahead and just lay it. I know it's been talking for a minute, but I'll just go ahead and lay it out. So this little boy, clearly after a lot of struggle and a lot of fight, finally makes his way to safety, right? And you can only imagine the shit this kid has gone through because you see it on his face. This kid is haunted, and he makes it there in one piece, and he's taken in to be checked out, and we see the little kid has a zombie bite on him, and we start to show off in a very extreme way, where we see a couple of nurses essentially give a kid a lethal injection, killing a kid because he's been bitten by the zombies and can infect the quarantine zone. And this whole sequence, man, I thought um it was a very dark way, very, very heavy way to introduce us into the world, because after that, we were introduced to the burn pits, where clearly anybody who's infected is burned alive, or I mean, burned after they've been killed. And we see a woman, and then we see her open a truck containing a new set of dead bodies, and she recoils for a second, And then she turns to the other guy and says, "Hey, I don't feel good doing this." And we are introduced to Joel 23 years later, 23 years after his daughter died in his hands and all that. And that's what I think is important to remember about this scene. His daughter died in his hands, like he was holding her. And what and to sort of show, and again, very awesome, very great like characterization here, because he literally is taking this other dead child, right? Like Tess is like, I don't want to even touch it because I feel fucked up about it. But Joel's like, whatever, it's just another body. Takes this other child, holds it like he held his daughter before she got killed, and just casually throws her right back into the fire without thinking about it. Like, what did you think of that opening?
Yeah, that was something, right? Like, we didn't get that in the game. So, when it comes to this version of it, man, it just shows you how much Joel has changed, like throughout the years. Because I think at this point, he doesn't have a soul anymore. He
Yeah,
doesn't have a purpose. He doesn't have anything. He's just like he just don't give no fucks anymore.
right.
He's now just a soulless uh embody, like he's this person that doesn't have a soul, and he's just doing is what he's told, or doing what he's doing just to do it. And so when he throws the body in the pit with no ease or no hesitation, shows like, yeah, this guy is not the same Joel we got.
Yeah.
And it shows like, yeah, this guy he's gone. Like that Joel we saw in the opening, throughout the outbreak when it happened, is not the same Joel. He's gone, and there's no other person in there. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think, that when he did that.
Yeah. No, dude, definitely. Like I really thought like it's the little things, man. It's the little things. And that's one of the things that I really appreciated about this entire first episode, is that like it really felt like they wrote it and directed it like it was a movie, like this self-contained thing, because there's so many just little motifs and imagery that repeats and evolves over it. And that to me was the most the most yeah, probably the best moment of characterization. And I know that's not the only one that I fucking wrote down here. I wrote a whole bunch of notes while I was watching it. But yeah, so yeah, that's again, that's not in the game. That was a completely original thing for the show, and I thought that worked incredibly well. Then we sort of get kind of expand a little bit more on Ellie and I'm sorry, not Ellie, on Tess and Joel. We're gonna meet Ellie in a second, but yeah, we see that the military hangs people for escaping and shit like that, and they're living in a really fucked up world. And we learn that Joel hasn't heard from his brother Tommy. And is worried for, and they had a little fallout, and he hasn't talked to him in a while, and is worried about him, and he's trying to get a car battery so he can get out of town and meet back up with his brother. Don, what did you think about this whole sequence, this whole world building aspect of it?
Yeah, it just shows you the world that you know we're looking at. And just show that the military, just they're just doing what they're doing, just to do it. And I look at it as like, you know it's it's interesting because it's like, when you look at post-apocalyptic worlds, we're always looking at Mad Max, or when it comes to Day of the Dead or Dawn of the Dead, or stuff like that. We see military and people that either are on the good side or just trying to help people, or just they're out there for their own. And
Mm-hmm.
in this version, you see you see two worlds. You see two of them combined. So you got the people, the army that's trying to help people, and the other one, part of the army, is just doing it for their own benefit as well.
Right.
And that's the way I see the army in this show. When it comes to the survivors and the residents and the citizens, they're just going through some shit, and they're doing what they can to survive, as just like Joel is. And it seems like it's like a I would say community, but like it feels like it's quote unquote a normal world, but it's not. You
Yeah.
know, because when you see the community and all that, it feels like, oh, it's stabilized. You know, and it's like they're living their life or whatever. But it at the same time, you know, that's not the case. Like you can tell, like they're still struggling. So yeah, when we're introduced to their world and Joel, like yeah, that's what I got from it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the second half, definitely kind of has a bit more of a just sort of like a straightforward vibe. Not a whole lot of like in the way as flashy as the horror sequences in the first half or the big action sequences. And this one, it's very much just sort of following Joel and Tess as they're trying to figure out this car battery situation. And while we're doing that, there's a couple of other things that is building up. We understand that there's Fedra, which is whatever remains of the United States government, and then there's also the Fireflies, who are these rebels, the rebels to the Empire and shit like that. And they are. So first of all, this takes place in Boston. The opening takes place in Texas. So over the 23 years, Joel found his way from Texas to Boston, and we see that the Fireflies are waging a war against Fedra, and they have this little girl tied up in chains, and everybody's afraid of her, and nobody knows much about her. There seems to be a lot of secrecy about her. And this character, as we will go on to find out, is named Ellie. Dom, what did you think of Ellie in this episode?
Uh, yeah, yeah, Ellie in this episode definitely has kind of pretty much the same attitude and the same type of characteristics that the original Ellie had in the game. So I saw that. Um, the actress,
Bella
she
Ramsey.
is. I feel like yeah, I feel like the actress, she's like putting in her own type of flavor as well at the same time. I kind of saw that. Um, of course, she looks a little different than Ellie from the game. And I understand like a lot of these actors that play the roles, like they don't really look like the same character. They kind of do, but at the same time they don't. But that's okay as long as play the role right. But other than that, I think she did a pretty good job. First impression of Ellie in the show. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like how again, we're not I keep breaking my own rule here, but I really like the way that Belly Ramsey says motherfucker. She says it just like Ellie. That's exactly what
Yeah.
Ellie sounds like in the game. But one thing that I do appreciate though is that, and I mean, yeah, like definitely Pedro Pascal is putting on that sort of that Joel voice, right? He's putting on that southern drawl a little bit. And what I like is that clearly they are sort of cribbing from Troy Barker and Ashley Johnson's performance of Joel and Ellie, but they're definitely adding their own edge to it. And Bella Ramsey just seems like a little more childlike, which I really enjoyed. She reminds me of yeah, being that age and just cussing because you just like, that's the most badass thing you can do is just cuss as much as you can. Which Ellie does in the game too, but like seeing it in real life was a little jarring for some reason. But ultimately, it worked on me. Yeah, I really liked Bella Ramsey. I think that's her name. I'm pretty sure it's Bella Ramsey. I could be wrong, but I really liked her portrayal of Ellie here. We don't get to see a whole lot of her, but what we do get to see kind of shows someone who is still primarily just a kid. And yeah, so we understand that the Fireflies are going through this situation, and again, it's a very kind of straightforward like thing where there's this guy named Robert, which by the way, I believe is played by Troy Baker. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was Troy Baker who played Robert in this episode.
Oh, Robert. Oh man, I must have missed him on there because I know what he looks like kind of. So like I might have missed it. I might
Yeah,
have missed him,
I,
in that because yeah.
yeah, I could be wrong. It kind of looked like him, but maybe. But either way, this character Robert is the one who was supposed to sell Tess and Joel this car battery so they can go get Tommy, Joel's brother. And and essentially they find out that he sold it to someone else. And instead of making a big deal about it, Tess just wants to like go away. And then as she's leaving, the place she's at, it gets bombed, and she is arrested by the federal fucking government, which I think was honestly a bit of a weak point for me in this episode, right? Because for me, if a character's gonna be arrested, like that's a good way to like draw up some drama. And it really feels like that whole thing was just like she got arrested, and then like 2 scenes later she was out. Just was,
Yeah.
like it really just felt like a little like, oh, what's going on here, you know? But we do get one sequence that I really like, that I really want to talk about. We'll probably expand a little bit more in the second half here. But this is where we understand that Joel has been trying to get into contact with his brother, or actually no, sorry, this is later on. My bad. We'll touch upon the Bill and Frank thing a little later. But yeah, we see the sequence with Tommy finding out where his brother is and knowing where to go, and then he finds out that that they got ripped off on the car battery, and this is all just a big Deus ex machina. Because as that is going on, Firefly is getting ready to join up and escape the city. And this is where we learn, because Tommy and Joel and Tessa break into where Robert is supposed to be selling the battery, and he finds out he was going to be selling a battery that didn't work to begin with. He was going to rip anybody off who bought that fucking thing, and the people who he was selling it to is the Fireflies, and the Fireflies are who is holding Ellie. And this is where we meet Ellie. And again, this is all very plot heavy, so I'm just kind of moving it very quickly here because it's just plot information. And this is where the arrangement is made that they're going to take Ellie, that Joel and Tess are going to take Ellie to the Fireflies headquarters, and where they'll get all the equipments and automobiles they need to get back in contact with Tommy, and that sets forward the entire story. So that was a lot to throw out there, but yeah, I mean, what did you think about that, Dom?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing was interesting. Yeah. I think that arresting scene was definitely unnecessary. Because like if it doesn't affect the plot in a way where it's when it comes to the character of Joel or like another character, that has to get involved to get her out of jail or get her out of custody.
Yeah,
Then if that's not the case, then there's no reason to put it in there because it's a waste of time. But when it comes to them finding out that the battery that you're using, that the dude has, like, it doesn't work, and like they end up running into the Fireflies leader and Ellie at the right moment before they left. And I like the tension, but like the comedic, there's some comedy in there.
yeah,
Like when Ellie attacks Joel, like he outmaneuvers her and takes her down, and then like takes a knife and like puts on his foot. And then like they're having Joel and the leader are having a conversation, and then Ellie's just like, "Can you give me my give my knife back?" And he's just like ignoring her and keep talking to the lady.
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and then she still is talking shit to them, and then like, but yeah, that whole interaction with the whole plot of the show, I thought it was set very nicely, and like it definitely lays it out for you. Okay, they're gonna have to take this girl across country to get to Wyoming or
we're not there
Salt
yet.
Lake.
We're not there yet.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah, as far as they know, they're just gonna be taking him out, taking Ellie out to the
yeah,
next outpost. But yeah,
yeah, but yeah, that's my thoughts on that for sure. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, if there's one criticism that I do have with this show is that it really feels like all the really like great, like really well made stuff is in the first half, and the second half it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's really good, but it really just feels like a MacGuffin chase, like oh the car battery, and I could see why this served better as the second half of an episode as opposed to a whole thing as its own episode. Because if I came into the second week and the entire second episode is just about like, oh, the car battery, I'd be like, okay, this is a little too much. Like, let's just get going here. But yeah, so all that is just a really complex, convoluted way of bringing the Fireflies and Joel and Tessa together, and ultimately that's all that's important. Like this is the, like it's entertaining enough. It gets us to this point. When we only have a little bit left of the episode here because we only see them take the initial escape. And I really like how the show sort of ended on this note. By the way, I do want to comment on this one moment that I really enjoyed, right? Because, like I said, I feel like Ellie seems much more like a child in the TV show than she did in the game. Because as soon as they escape out to like the outside the quarantine zone, like the first thing Ellie does is just like stand up, and be like, "Whoa, I can't believe I'm outside." The air sure, and then all of a sudden the light comes out, and it's like, oh yeah, of course, like she's a kid, she's she don't know what the fuck she's doing, like I like that. But yeah, like what we get is actually a very brief sequence where they're escaping while there's this while the Fireflies and the federal government are having their little or no, I'm sorry, while the Fedra is looking for whatever Fireflies people are left. And then we run into a character that we were introduced earlier who Joel knows, and that's where we find out that Ellie is actually infected. And as we saw, usually if you're infected, you get shot or killed right on the spot. And we see for a moment a repeat of what happened to Sarah, where the police, where I'm sorry, the Fedra agent is just about to kill Ellie, who is another young girl around the same age of Sarah. And this time Joel stands up and charges and beats the guy to death, bloody death, before he lets that happen again. And then after that, like they just kind of move on and move past, and we're introduced to the second episode. Or that's the end of the first episode. So Dom, the big final climactic conflict between the Fedra agent and Joel. What do you think about that moment?
Yeah, I thought it was a good moment because it shows that Joel doesn't want to relive that moment again, and he's just like, yeah, this time I can do something about it, Um, so I thought that was a touching moment right there, and it also goes to show like that like he hates the military because after what they did to his daughter, and I think he doesn't trust him, and if he has to kill one, he'll kill one, no problem, But when it comes to this guy, he was gonna do the same exact thing, and he was reliving his moment, and he was like, nope, not this time. So I thought that was a good touch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that we don't get in the game. At least not that I remember. Like, there's no quick flashback to. I feel like no one knows, myself included. I feel like no one I know, myself, watched The Last of Us. That's crazy. I would hope that it got some good views because it's a good show. But yeah, like I really enjoyed having, and usually I knock a show for like, doing a quick flashback to something that happened before. Because usually it's like, did you forget, audience, that this happened? But I actually felt like we already have that in the original Last of Us. We don't get that quick little flashback. We just see Joel charge and stop the guy. But what I really liked about here, knowing the full context of everything was just that, like, I found it more emotionally satisfying to see Joel like acknowledge that, that it's not some sort of subconscious thing. Was that he acknowledges that, yeah, this does remind me of my daughter, and I will be damned if this is going to happen again. And I really love how that contrasted with how the show started off, right? Because the episode, again, this was supposed to be 2 episodes originally, and clearly the second episode was going to open up with the little kid being burned and stuff. And I really love how that contrasted, how Joel just takes that kid's body and throws it in the fire without thinking about it, to Joel um, having this moment where Ellie's in danger and saying, fuck that, I'm not going to let this happen again. And I thought that was a very solid fucking way to tell that. But I think one of the smart things that they did, by having all this in one go, is that we don't have like a week between seeing how Sarah died and then seeing the end of this episode. Because if you think about it, in the second half, Joel doesn't develop as a character at all. Like he's just kind of shown to be this violent guy, hateful guy, and stuff like that. And essentially, um, yeah. So that's all you see in the in that second half of the episode. So if there was a week between what Joel went through in the first half and then what happens in the second half, I think it would have just made Joel seem like a boring character, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, like yeah, when I said before, like yeah, they could have ended it there because of like the way the setting up the world of The Last of Us and how they're showing the outbreak happening and all that. Yeah, if you think about it now, yeah, definitely when it comes to character, yeah, Joel wasn't really developed as much. He was just talking and just there. But yeah, I think they made a good choice. Uh, Implementing the two episodes together
Yeah.
and making it as one episode. Yeah, I still like. I think that it would have been good if it was separate episodes, but I think it is more better if they connected it. So yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. There is one thing that happens. So the way that it's constructed is, we have that scene, and then we cut back to Joel's apartment, where earlier in the show we see this whole thing where Ellie finds out that he's in communication with these guys named Bill and Frank, and they play music from different decades to let Joel know who's alive, who's dead, if everything is okay, or if there's problems. And we have 60s music is something is bad, 70s music is everything is cool, 80s music means someone died. And the last musical cue, kind of like the second to last shot of the show, is a close up on that radio where an 80s song hits. Somebody died. We know who died, but anybody who hasn't played the game doesn't know. But yeah, but I really like that touch, man. What did you think of just like that little touch? Because I thought it was a cool like setup for what we see with one of these characters later, but also that like Ellie just like picks up that book, sees the radio, and just quickly puts it together. You know, what did you think of that?
Yeah, that was like a cool, clever uh, scene when Joel and Ellie they get to the safe house and he's still in rest. He sleeps and then wakes up, and then like she asks him like about the codes, and then she reveals like she knows, and then he's like, "Oh shit!" And then she asks him like, "Oh yeah, what's the this one and what's that one?"
Yeah,
But like she tricked him into revealing that those codes are like 80s is someone's dead
yeah,
and the other one. So she wanted to get information out of him by tricking him, asking him a question about it, and then like he gave her the answer, and
yeah,
she's like, oh,
yeah,
she get like a smile and like he's like oh shit.
yeah,
uh, but yeah, I thought that was a cool touch, showing how communication is between Joel and like the rest of the people in that community and how everything goes. But yeah, definitely, I like that. It was a cool touch. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I just really love the way that that sort of between that and Ellie literally like stabbing the guard and her like attacking Joel. You know, she's a smart girl. She's very tough. Also, I mean, she went to military school. We see that Joel clearly is not as heartless as he wants to think he is. He has still a bit of humanity left in him, but not a lot, you know. And then we see that Tess is probably the one thing that is grounding him and keeping him human, because I don't think he really cares if Ellie lives or dies at this point. Again, man, like, what did you think? What, like, overall, like, anything else you want to say before we go into sort of the more adaptational part of it?
Yeah, yeah, just the overall just a good um reenactment slash retelling of the story, but they do it a little differently, which I liked because um you know it's fine they kept the same type of scenes, but
Yeah,
they changed it up a little bit and to throw us off as fans and people who play the game that know what's gonna happen. They're like, yeah, this is gonna happen, but we're gonna throw a loop in it. just so we can throw you off. So yeah, I think they do a good job at doing that through this episode so far, and hopefully they keep doing that throughout the rest of the episodes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I really enjoyed the way that this. I really enjoyed the overall sort of style of the show. Again, like I said at the beginning, like I really. I think this show is set up and set itself up for it to be something really special, something really interesting. This is one of the most expensive TV shows that HBO has ever made, and you can see the money on the screen. This game looks amazing. The clicker, like the effect of the clicker body up against the wall, looked incredible. I'm pretty sure that was all practical too. It looked like it was practical. If that was CGI, that was like Avatar 2 level CGI. Like I thought that looked great. I really can't wait to see the practical clicker enemies as we go on. But as to what we got today, again, really solid intro to what's again I would hope to be a very special series. All that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the adaptational parts of it. You ready, Dom?
Yep.
All right, guys. So if you have not played the Last of Us games and you do not want to be spoiled for what's coming in the Last of Us TV show, right now would be a good time to check out because we're going to be talking about the whole game series, all the two games, how all this relates to what we might see in the future. As you can see below, I have the little banner letting you guys know that if you haven't played the games, you shouldn't be here. So yeah, Dom, let's get right into it, man. Let's go right off the bat, bro. Right off the bat, like this game, the show, we don't even get caught up to where the game starts until about like what 20 minutes into it.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. With the game, yeah, they implemented the whole Outbreak, same type of playing. The way the scene plays out, it's the same,
Yeah,
but they added a few new things. One is the fact that you see more Sarah's character, in school and all that, and go to the next door neighbor, and then we get the scene with Tommy, Joel, and Sarah in the same scene together, talking, and then we get to the part where we see Joe come home from work, and then they have a conversation, all the watch and all that. But then she falls asleep like in the game on his lap, and then he gets a phone call from Tommy, which didn't happen in the original game when she was sleeping on the lap, because when she was sleeping on his lap, he immediately picks her up and puts her in bed. But in this one, instead of that, like he calls Tommy calls him,
yeah,
and then after he hangs up and then puts her on the bed, which is an like I said, that is different things, and then they added some stuff into it, which is cool.
yeah,
Um and also the Sarah's, uh POV, or Sarah's experience of the virus breakout, is playing out pretty much the same and also a little bit different, because she's in the house going around, but then she goes outside, which didn't happen. She goes outside and she goes to into the next door neighbor's house and all that. So like there's a lot to it that they adapted it, but they did different things to do that. The car scene, all
yeah.
that, airplane scene. Yeah.
No, I really, really loved how this show expanded on the world of the first game. I like honestly like being with Sarah throughout that whole day and just seeing her be this determined kid who just wants to do something special for her dad. Like I loved it, dude. Like I loved it, but like as soon as Joel came home and we started to get that dialogue from the game. By the way, that I really enjoyed how it was the exact same dialogue. And yeah, there's like I really love how like this is like a differentiation point. How like you just see like very good direct comparisons between how Pedro Pascal is playing Joel and how the actress who played Sarah. Now the actress in the game did it, and I just thought it was a really entertaining little Easter egg and shit like that. But also like it made me happy, and it also filled me with dread, dude. Because I was like, oh fuck, oh now we're starting to repeat lines from the game. Like Sarah's gonna be dead soon, and all I could think like when that hit me, dude, all I could think is like, man, like I got to spend some time with Sarah, get to know her as a person, and now I'm gonna watch her die. and I was like, "Fuck, bro! Like, I'm not looking forward to that." Like, it's a surprise to anybody who hasn't played the games. But I mean, for you, did you like? How did you feel watching her, knowing that she's gonna die like in 20 minutes?
Yeah, um I felt sad, man, because I'm like, yeah, she's like, good character, and you're starting to know her, and it's just, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Um and it does, but like, just you just don't want it to happen. But I was thinking, and I was just joking about it when I was watching it. I was like, it'll be funny. It would be funny, but like, it'd be nuts if it turns out that she doesn't die, but Tommy dies instead, or something like that. I thought that would be like a whoa, like shock factor, like to the fans.
Yeah,
Not to like the newer audience, but like the fans' reaction is gonna be, wait, what?
yeah,
You killed Tommy?
that would have been a little too much. Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, spending time with her, man, and like getting to know her and knowing she's gonna die. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
yeah. Nah, dude. Like, yeah, dude. Honestly, though, like it was fun until once again we started to have that same dialogue from the game, and I was like, "Fuck, bro! Like, she's almost dead." And so like, yeah, I really enjoyed that. I really like just spending a little more time with Tommy and Joel. That was pretty fun too. But like overall, man, like I was just really surprised by like how the entire like first episode is just like the first 2.5 hours of the game. It's like just cut down and also expanded on in a lot of ways. But yeah, I really like that part of it, man. Like another big change also is just sort of what haven't we talked about here? Uh, let's see. I want to go and just really quick look at my notes. Let's see. See. Yeah, is there anything else? Is there anything else you want to talk about as far as like the difference between the game specifically in the show?
Um, well, there is a part that was different, like um the Firefly attack,
Mm-hmm.
explosion and stuff. That was different because in the game, Joel and Tess, they go up to the gate, and then the Fireflies attack and they explode the gate and explode the trucks. Whereas in this one, it happens way before Joel and Tess have their scene where he finds out she has a black eye. Before that, that's when the fireflies attack and they
Mm-hmm.
blow up the wall and all that, and that's supposed to be the attack that happened in the original, but it was done differently. I thought that was another touch that they did that was done differently.
Yeah. No, yeah, and I also like in a lot of ways the way that they built Dread around like Ellie by essentially like just letting us know before in the game you just meet her when you meet Marlene, but in the show we spend time with her as this like mysterious person and shit. Like I really enjoyed how that drew out the tension with all that. What else is there to say about the adaptational parts of it, man? Let's see. Yeah, is there anything else you want to touch upon? Like anything else that comes to mind?
Uh, yeah, there's found like one more. Yeah, there's the the it was like the differences when it comes to um the roles of the characters. The Like I brought up earlier, we kind of laughed at it, like, they're different, you know, ethnicities and stuff, but I thought like the fact, like Tommy, the guy who played Tommy, by the way, he played the Terminator in Terminator Dark Fate.
Oh, okay.
He was one of the Terminators, a bit the villain of the movie. And he in here he does a really good job portraying Tommy, Tommy's character, right?
Yeah.
and like in the game, and I was like, wow, like he's really doing really good. Like showing, hey, like I'm the character, this is Tommy, this is not, a Hispanic dude trying to be Tommy. Like, yeah, he is Tommy, which is cool because you don't really get that a lot with diversity when it comes to diversity with actors and the characters they play. Same thing with Joel's daughter, Sarah. She's a different ethnicity, but she still plays it well. Like she plays it like Sarah from the game. So I thought that was really cool, and it shows like you know yeah, it'd be cool to have like the same type of, I guess, ethnicity, but like, as long as the actor fits the role and they do a really good job at auditioning for it, and they're really doing good, and when they're rolling and acting as the character, then it's golden, you know. So that part right there is not a disadvantage; it's actually an advantage because it shows that people have talent and they can play these types of characters without worrying about their ethnicity. And I think that's a plus.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think one thing that was kind of jarring for me was seeing Pedro Pascal do the Joel voice, with like the southern drawl. Like he sounds like Troy Baker's Joel. Like he really does. That was trippy coming out from it. But another adaptational thing that I really enjoyed was that we got to spend a little more time with Tess. What I really liked about like how difference between Tess and Joel was that like you get like I really feel like it's weird, right? Because Joel wants to pretend that like he doesn't care anymore, like he's given up, right? But clearly, what we see in the game and in this episode was that he still has some fight. There's still a little bit of hope left in him, even though he doesn't want to acknowledge it himself, right? So I really enjoyed that. But what I really liked about Tessa's character, what I really feel like I understood more, is that unlike Joel, she really does accept things for the way they are. Like she understands the world that she is in, and she truly accepts it, which is what's gonna make her death. That we know she's gonna die like probably in the next episode. I think that makes her death, like her coming death, like really it's gonna be more interesting, because like I really feel like in the game you understand the sort of underlying emotionality behind it, but it with the extra time that we have to see her navigate the world as someone who is a much kinder person than Joel on the surface, but deep down is just completely like giving up on everything. Like that's gonna be an interesting thing to see play out moving forward. I think that's about was concerning this episode. I mean, unless there's anything else you could think of, I think that's about it as far as the adaptational stuff, right?
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, we touched on a lot of them for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, one last thing that I want to, because we're not gonna be able to do this again. Like, we can only do this right now for the very first episode of the very first season. What do you predict is going to be different adaptationally from here on out?
So, well, for the next episode, it looks like they're going in the buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm thinking is gonna happen differently is that instead of I was trying um instead of Joel taking out the clickers and the zombies in the building, it doesn't sound crazy, but like he ends up blowing up the building or something like that.
Okay.
He finds explosives and he ends up blowing up the building full of clickers and stuff, and then it's all the building starts to like crash it into another building and starts falling out. Something like that. I don't
That's
know.
real uncharted shit, bro. That's the wrong Naughty Dog game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, man. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. No, I feel like there's gonna be one character. I think we're gonna at least see one character that is gonna be like the exact opposite of what they are in the game. That's one of my predictions. I'm not sure which one. I think we're gonna get either an entire episode or a lot of background stuff about either Bill and Frank. I think we might get an entire episode about Bill and Frank, and then also an entire episode about Sam and the little brother. we're not quite there yet. But I feel like those are two episodes that we're really gonna two characters that we're gonna see get a ton more screen time moving forward. What about you?
Yeah, I believe that the characters are gonna be a little different. If we're gonna look at the characters we just mentioned, Sam, the brother, older brother, younger brother. Um, I don't know, like maybe the younger one is gonna be more like instead of like nice and like um, you know, carrying like I think it's gonna be more of a brat or something, maybe.
Oh,
Um,
it'd be cool, man. That whole sequence with Sam and the brother when you get that backstory about all those people that were living there in the water situation and shit. Oh,
yeah,
what if we actually get to see all that? Because I always thought that would have been like a good little DLC to see those group of people and how their society fell apart.
yeah, yeah. That's probably it too. Yeah, I've
Yeah,
probably
man.
seen.
Yeah, no, yeah, dude, but like that's all that's probably gonna be it for today's episode. Dom, is there anything you want to let the audience know before we sign off here?
Yeah. Just see. Make sure that you guys follow, subscribe to my boy Eduardo here from Pop Counterculture Media. He does a lot of content. Just recently, he's still doing it. Of course, right now he's doing it. Um, on my channel, I do upload videos at certain times depending on how long it takes, and I'll let everyone know on social media, of course, on YouTube as well when my videos come out. I am doing a live stream later Friday this week with two other people that are going to be talking to you about movies and stuff. So those things are coming up on the pipeline. So yeah, just stay tuned for that. And yeah, thank you guys for coming by.
Yeah, guys, thank everybody for watching. Thanks anybody who is watching in the future. Make sure to drop your comments what you thought of today's episodes in the chat or in the comment section below. I definitely read through what everyone says. I'll reply to those that I can, given the time given, or given the time that I have available. All that being said, it's crazy out there with the weather. Take care, be safe out there. Hope everybody has a good night. We'll be back next Sunday, right after the second episode ends, which is called Infected. It's going to be very much about Ellie. I think we might get to see some insights into like Ellie's background and origin story, which would be kind of interesting. But we're gonna see. And Dom, thanks for coming on, man. I'll see you next week.
All right, see you next week.
Peace out, everyone.